Why does EQ feel so complicated when you start producing? Most beginners either just avoid it or end up with muddy amateur songs. So in this video, I'm going to show you a dead simple system to EQ anything in Logic. No guessing, no magic. I've used this on hundreds of songs and it works every time. So let's open up an EQ and break this stuff down. What is all this stuff anyway? Well, here's the easiest way to understand EQ. It's just a volume fader, but for specific frequencies. That's it. Nothing mystical. You're just turning certain parts of the sound up or down. So think of an EQ like a volume fader on steroids. It lets you dial in and adjust the specific part of the sound you want. For example, if I have a bass player and they're playing too loud, I would just turn the volume fader down, right? But with EQ, I can actually identify the specific low frequency range and just turn that part down. Or I could turn the high part down or the middle. It doesn't matter. And the cool part, you can use a different shape depending on what you want to lower. Like you can cut it all with this shape or lower it with a shelf or even have a bell curve shape like this. Now, here's an important question I want you to ask before you even touch an EQ. Do I actually need to EQ? And the honest answer is not all the time, but maybe. You only need EQ when you want less volume in a specific range or more volume in a specific range. That's it. EQ is like a tool to help. It's not a to-do list item. So let's start step 2 now, and it's the most common reason people even reach for an EQ. Most EQ moves start with lowering the volume, not boosting it. Essentially, you're listening for things that you might want to remove or subtract from your track or song. The key here is to minimize listening in solo. EQ is a really helpful context tool. It only really makes sense when things are playing together. Because if you're just listening to something in solo, how do you know if it sounds bad or good in the mix? If you just were listening to a track in solo and you lower the volume, well, you know what that's going to sound like in solo, right? What are you lowering the volume against? That's why it's really helpful to EQ things in context so you can hear how they're interacting with the other frequencies around it. So a helpful way to do this is thinking in buckets. Low, medium, and high. For example, let's say in the mid-range you got vocals, guitars, and keys. So if you have a lot of guitars in the mid-range and they're living in that same space as a vocal, something's got to give here. And it's usually not the vocal. So you might gently remove some of the mid-frequencies from the guitars, not because they sound bad on their own, because in solo they sound great, but it's because they're crowding the vocal in the mix in context. Here's an important reality check. If you're doing massive EQ cuts, like little slivers and little cuts just to make something sound okay, that's not really an EQ problem. That's a recording problem. EQ is not a rescue mission. So if the source recording sounds off, you have to fix that first. Step 3, which is asking the opposite question of step 2. What needs more presence or volume? This is where boosting or raising volume can be really helpful. Here's an example. I was listening to a student's drum recording recently in context, and everything felt like the drum had just like a wet blanket over it. So instead of cranking the volume of the entire drum track, you can just add a gentle like boost in the mid-range and high range to just open up the drums a bit more and open up the air of them. And suddenly the drums will start to feel much more clear, more energetic, and more alive. So the same performance, same recording, is just you're adding the presence and volume in that specific frequency range where it mattered most. Boosting EQ isn't necessarily just to make things necessarily more louder, but it's to help it be more present in your song too. And just like before, when you're making these changes, always listening in context. Okay, step 4, this is where things start to get fun. Let's talk about some clever EQ hacks that you can do. One of my favorites is using the mid-side EQ on stereo instruments. So here's the idea. The mid is what sits dead center, right? And the sides is what gives you that width and space. So with mid-side EQ, you can actually cut or boost certain frequencies only in the mid or on the sides. Why does this matter? Because sometimes a sound is cluttering the center, right? If you have a stereo instrument, but you don't want to lose that width on the side. So this lets you clean up that middle without killing the vibe on the sides. It's like EQ with intention instead of just like turning the whole thing down or up. Okay, let's get to step 5 now. which opens up a whole new layer of control. Now, at some point, you're probably going to open up the vintage tube EQ in Logic, and you're going to be like, whoa, this looks complicated. I won't be able to handle this. But here's the funny thing. It's actually simpler than the channel EQ because you're only working with frequency, the part of the sound, gain, how much you want to boost it or lower it, and then bandwidth, which is how narrow or wide the change is. The same thing goes for these three dials too. So you really just need to pick the frequency. So, okay, let's say I want to raise the volume at between 8 and 10,000 hertz to give a bit of brightness. I do something broad or narrow, and then boost the gain. So at 10 dB, you're going to really notice it when I boost up the guitars here. A lot more kind of open top end, and then that's probably a little bit dramatic, so I might bring it down. Attenuation and boost, the boost is boosting the lows, and attenuating is like cutting them. So again, setting the frequency. So if it's a bit boomy at 100 hertz, locking it in at 100, and then either increasing it or lowering it. This type of EQ actually might seem more difficult than the typical channel EQ, but it's giving you less room for error because you have to really dial in and pick specific frequencies here. Where this one, it's kind of open-ended, and often you don't really know where to choose. At least with this one, you lock in something and then you're listening with your ears to seeing the results. That's it. So it's the same thinking, same system, just a different look. And with those limitations you have, in my opinion, it's easier. The vintage EQs both have a blessing and a curse. The blessing is you can't actually see the frequencies like you can in a channel EQ, right? So you're forced to trust your ears. The curse, that's really hard to do at first. But if you stick with it, changing these dials and listening is actually where your ears will really start to grow. So here's the truth. EQ is always going to feel 10 times harder if your recordings or sound choices aren't super dialed in. That's why you need to watch this video here, and I'm going to teach you 17 brutally honest music production truths. These are the things I wish someone told me years ago when I first started. They're going to help you produce smarter, mix faster, and make EQ way easier. Hit that video. I'll see you there.